Yeah. 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 Chrome hearts at the Caesar's Palace. I was a sneaker savage, undefeated baggage. K-bar, you can be established. A 230s, that's 69s. You can eat a salad while you feed a phallus. I speak in palettes that compete with graphics. At the speed of cheetah gallops at indecent average. Chopsticks when I be eating Garrett's.
So that means, actually I always say it's Monday night. This is a special Tuesday edition. Gotta ding the bell. All right. And I also have to say, this is our 50th episode, Kenny.
Bang, bang.
Episode number 50. And I think we got to ding the bell for that. I think we got to ding the bell for Mano a Mano 50. ¿Qué piensa de eso, Kenny?
Es fantástico. La alegría. Hemos estado trabajando. We've been working, man. We've been putting in work. Let's keep making it happen, bro. Good conversations, good boxing, a good show. We moving right. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. And we got a lot to talk about today because Maestro was up early this morning. You know, I had to get that stream ready to go because, you know, my man Naoya Inoue,
the monster.
And, you know, I don't know what this Japanese, because I don't read Japanese, but I got a little Japanese shirt on. Let me see it over here, okay, for Naoya today, Mano a Mano, all right? He put on a clinic of power punching out there in the Saitama Super Arena just outside Tokyo. He put on a clinic, and we're going to get to a little bit of that, all right? We're also going to talk about the new undisputed lightweight champion of the world, all right? It is Devin the Dream Haney, all right?
And the new.
Are they going to do it again, though, Kenny? Kambosos and Haney?
They got to do it again. We 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 got to do it again. They got to do it again.
Apparently they got to do it again, and apparently George has got to remind us of that about, 50 times, Shout out to George, though. He said that 50 times. Maybe he did it because this is episode 50, so ding the bell for George Kambosos Jr., all right, because he took those titles to the ring. He defended them against Devin Haney, and we're going to get into that. I also got to review Maestro's top 3 lightweights, okay? Kenny is going to chime in on that. All right, we'll see where we agree. We'll see where we disagree. All right. I'm also going to ask Kenny if a certain fighter, all right, I'm going to give a little tease here, a little hint.
As long as it's not zurdo.
he fights at 168. I'm going to ask Kenny if he needs some respect put on his name. All right, we're gonna get to that, and then I'm gonna give everyone my top 5. It's not my top 5 dead or alive, but it's my top 5 live, because these are live dogs in boxing. And again, I'm gonna ask Kenny to chime in. But before we get to all of that, I gotta salute JC. He was first up in here. All right. We got Denmark in the house. That's Golden Mike 30. Philly Drew Irish is with us. Okay, Chicano Prophet is with us. Thank you so much, Chicano. All right, King KO is with us. And, it wouldn't be a mano if we didn't big up the big dog himself, the OG of mano a mano. He's a day one. I'm talking about Mr. Nando Llamas. Big it up for him. All right, he says, hey, yo, saludos to Maestro Kenny and the chat. Feliz Fidi. Thank you so much. He's heading to the gym, but he will be listening. I hope he is listening. All right, I hope he is listening. I know he always.
Get your swole on, bro. Get your swole on.
There you go. There you go. All right, so, Reese Mac says, don't do it again. I'm not sure what he's referring to there, but
the fight. He's agreeing with Joe Tessitore. Don't do the rematch. I'm with Kambosos. Do it again. Do it again.
I got some comments about Joe Tessitore, and we're gonna go in on that a little bit. So remind me to review Joe Tessitore. But first, all right, I gotta give it up, and I'm gonna play this with a little bit of audio, not too much. You know, I don't want to get that copyright strike on me. All right, but I can't do a mano without showing a little bit of what Naoya Inoue did inside the ring. All right, I cannot do a mano without showing that. And some of you may not have seen it. Some of you aren't early risers, all right, like me. So enjoy, all right, a little bit of Naoya Inoue. This was round number 1, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that was round number 1. You see that in slow-mo over there. Ooh, that was tough. That was tough. All right, you see it again from another angle. Booyah! And Nonito goes down. All right, and believe it or not, Kenny, I mean, as savage as that round 1 knockdown was, it
got worse.
It actually got worse in round number 2. And again, we're going to keep these highlights short and quiet over here on Mano a Mano 50. But again, we got to show a little bit of what the monster was able to accomplish in Japan. And look at this. Look at that. I don't know how Nonito stood up for that, but he stood up and he fought like a champ. Look at this. Oh, I don't know how he stood up.
Down goes Donaire. Down goes Donaire.
And you know, look, I couldn't say it better. Talk Trend says it right here. Shout out to Nonito, 40-year-old old man, well, 39, but yes, near 40, fighting a killer. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. And a lot of people say they'll go out on their shield. You know, George Kambosos said he would go out on his shield. All right. Devin Haney, all right, put him up to that test. But you know who went out on his shield? Nonito Donaire. And personally, Kenny, I don't know what you guys think. All right. But to me, he's definitely a Hall of Famer. All right. He's a multiple weight world champion, fought all the way up at 126. And then in his later years did something that very few people do effectively. He went back down in weight to 118. All right. He took on the monster, which a lot of people struggle to do. He went 12 rounds with the monster in the first fight, Kenny. I actually thought that what happened this morning was what was going to happen in the first fight. I was wrong. But I felt that what happened this morning was going to happen. I just didn't know it would be in round 2. I'm not going to say I thought it was going to be in round 2, you know, but you know, in a way, he's just next level. Kenny, what are your thoughts?
No one could have predicted that Inoue was gonna do that in round 2. Nobody. Like anybody who says that is a damn liar. And look, I'm a big ass monster fan. Naoya Inoue is that dude. I've been saying that. I thought he was good, like you said. I thought he was gonna knock him out in the first fight. Thought he was gonna knock him out in the second fight, which he did in the second fight. The first fight, he didn't. It is what it is. But I think he did exactly what he had to do. He already know Inoue style from the first, Inoue already knew Donaire style from the first fight. They both know each other. Inoue was going in there confident. It wasn't something that he hadn't seen before. It wasn't something new to him. The wisdom of Donaire, it wasn't it wasn't an advantage for Donaire anymore. You understand what I'm saying? Like Inoue already had that wisdom figured out. So he came in this fight like if it was round 13 and 14 of the last fight. And he went in there trying to knock the dude out from the first round, doing exactly what he should have done. You know, I applaud it. I appreciate it. I'm very happy that he got that KO in the second round. And Donaire definitely is a Hall of Fame dude. I'm not hating on Donaire. I think that the monster is the guy right now. Donaire, I big him up all the way. Greatness to the T of the word. Like that is actual greatness, fighting the best at the age that he's in. Not like current dudes that call themselves the best, but do not actually fight the best. But I do think that Donaire needs to stop taking these big ass challenges before some, a bad injury happens, long-term injury like Muhammad Ali or something. We never know. He is at an older age, so if he's going to continue boxing, he needs to start boxing these easier opponents and not box killers like Inoue.
No, I agree. And it was said earlier in the chat, I forget who said it, but Casimero would be a good opponent for him. They had that beef, they had that trash talk, they had that, negative energy between them, right? And
that fight won't happen, though. The whole thing with the wife.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. And what I want to say, though, the last chip on the table for Inoue right now is Paul Butler. Paul Butler shouldn't even be a world champion. I'm just going to say it. Paul Butler won the world championship because of some rule in Britain where, guys can't sweat out their last few pounds in the sauna. Guys can't put on a wetsuit, a sweatsuit, and get that sweat going in the sauna. I mean, he was stripped of his title over that, and now Paul Butler is champion. Well, you know what? Paul Butler is about to meet his maker. And, he's a world champ for literally one fight if he takes on Inoue next. What are your thoughts, Kenny?
Paul Butler is definitely going down. I don't see why Inoue would not fight Paul Butler next. Inoue's trying to move up in weight, but if he's smart, which I believe he's smart, then he's gonna do the unification, the undisputed fight with Paul Butler, a big ass money fight for all the belts, and then I think he'll move up and drop all those belts. But unfortunately, the best at 122 probably won't be there anymore to fight Inoue when Inoue would be ready for the best at 122, because the best at 122 is going to be moving up to 126. And the best at 122 that I'm talking about is Stephen Fulton. Cool boy Steph.
I want to say two things. First of all, Sly Tendencies was asking about the glove situation. The first fight, they both used winning gloves. There's actually a little bit of an issue because Donaire wanted to use Everlast, but his gloves were damaged either on the plane or being shipped out there. But whatever the case, the gloves were not fit for the fight. So he ended up using winning gloves, and those are the gloves that are famous for being good for protecting the hands. Floyd Mayweather famously fought in them. They're not known as quote unquote puncher's gloves. Well, this time they got the gloves they wanted, right? Donaire had his Everlast, and Inoue got to fight with Cleto Reyes, definitely a puncher's glove. So I don't know how much that had to do with it, the comfort of fighting in the gloves they wanted to, but they were puncher's gloves. It's not necessarily a conspiracy theory to say that, Inoue might hit a little bit harder in Reyes than he would in winning. I've heard winning the gloves described as like big pillows on their hands. That's obviously an exaggeration, but they're definitely not known as puncher's gloves, okay? The second thing I want to say, here's what I'd like to see, Kenny. Inoue against Butler. Get that undisputed. We all know he's undisputed, but just get the last belt. And for all intents and purposes, he's undisputed. He holds 3 of the 4 major titles, and honestly, I still don't consider the WBO up there with the other 3, but it is what it is. Collect the last belt, but I don't want to see him at 122. If anything, I want to see him at 115 because I believe he skipped over 115 after fighting at 112 and winning a championship there. And there's some great names at 115. You got Estrada. You got Chocolatito. You got Bam Rodriguez. You've got Sor Rungvisai. You got a lot of good guys in that weight class. And as long as Fulton stays around at 122, I see that as a very difficult fight for Inoue. But also, honestly, I don't know if Fulton's been in there. Actually, it's not that I don't know. I know Fulton hasn't been in there with a puncher like Inoue, Kenny.
But Inoue'd be going to a higher weight class to fight Fulton. We don't know how that weight is, how the punching power is going to translate to the new weight class. Although I do think that punching power is going to be there, but we just don't know. It's a question mark. Stephen Fulton himself plans on moving up to 126, I believe it is. He's not staying at 122. So both Naoya, Inoue, and Fulton are speaking about moving up to the next weight class. They both want to move up. I don't see Inoue moving down in weight. Inoue is what I just saw, 29 years old. Inoue is 29 years old, man. I don't see him going back down in weight. As you get older, weight becomes a problem, although he does seem like he's very disciplined. I don't know. I just don't see him going back down to 115. Plus, I want to see him go up in weight because the way I see it is the smaller you are, the bigger guy you beat, the more props I give you. You know what I'm saying? So Usyk beating Joshua, yeah, dog. That's big dog shit right there. And that's what I'd like to see Big Dog, the monster, do at 122 pounds.
Well, there you go. I mean, the only reason I don't think it's going to happen, for the record. I'm just saying what I'd like to see. You know, if Maestro management was involved, we try to get that weight cut, right? We'd set him up with the best nutritionist in the world, you know? We'd get the best strength and conditioning guys there. We keep his weight down. Hell, we'd even put a security guard around him 24/7 anytime he wants to eat street food out there in Tokyo or maybe hit the bars, right? Just to make sure that he's on weight and hitting the 115. But the reason also 115 appeals to me, again, is because he skipped over the actually, I don't think, wait a second, I don't think he did skip over 115. I think he skipped over 112. So I stand corrected. All right. But I don't know. I still think it's 122 is a problem. Only because of Stephen Fulton Jr. Stephen Fulton Jr. is a master boxer, but I'd like to see him get that Akhmadaliev fight, Stephen Fulton Jr. And also become undisputed, because you got 2 belts with Akhmadaliev, you got 2 belts with Stephen Fulton Jr. It's only logical that those 2 guys, you know, match up with one another and fight each other for the undisputed championship. That's my opinion on that. Any last words on that one before we head over to Haney and Kambosos, Kenny?
I got nothing left on Inoue besides I want to see him go up. But definitely let's discuss a little Fulton and Roman, but after Kambosos and the Dream, who won the 4 belts.
There you go. Yeah, right. Because we haven't even talked about the Fulton fight. Good call. Yeah. So, look, I give a lot of credit to Devin Haney. Devin Haney did something that a lot of fighters these days don't do, okay? Number one, he traveled around the world to fight a fighter in his home country, all right? Number two, he crossed the street, all right? And essentially took a deal that he needed to take in order to get this fight, all right? Getting out of a lucrative situation with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, all right? And he became undisputed lightweight champion of the world and solidified his status in the sport and is, you know, making headway there of becoming a name that people are going to talk about for years to come. So big up to Devin Haney, all right? And I also got to big up George Kambosos Jr. because he didn't necessarily have to take on Devin Haney, but he did. He reminded us about that after the fight, of course, multiple times. But he
what
did
again.
He gave him his shot, and he hopes that he'll do it again, right? So, so that was Kambosos Jr. So big up to him for taking on the fight. But I didn't really look. I don't want to be too overly critical here, but Kambosos clearly didn't have a plan on how to deal with Devin Haney on the inside. Devin Haney had a plan, all right? It was hit, pivot, or hit, hold.
Jab,
right?
jab.
Jabbed his ass off, all right? The only thing, if I'm going to be a little critical of Devin Haney, and I said this on another show, shout out to the Undefeated podcast in the UK, Travin and KG, those are my guys. And, you know, some people didn't like hearing it, but I am not, as a fan, a big fan of strategic holding. All right. And what I mean about strategic holding is it's not like you got hurt and you hold in that instance. It's you're on offense, you're winning the fight, and you hit a guy and then hold him so that there's no inside fighting. Klitschko did this a lot. John Ruiz did it a lot. To a certain extent, Paulie Malignaggi did it throughout his career. I don't like how it creates a stop, start situation. And I also think it robs the fans of inside fighting. And mostly, I also think that Devin Haney didn't even need to do it to win this fight. Personally, he could have just won the fight jabbing, moving, occasionally landing a right hand or a left hook. So, you know, it is what it is. And you look at George Kambosos, he wasn't able to cut off the ring. All right, you want to see a guy cut off the ring? Rewatch Nonito and Naoya Inoue. I mean, yes, it helps that he has punching power, but there was nowhere for Nonito to go. You know, there was nowhere for him to go. So those are my thoughts on that fight. It could have been a shutout. You know, maybe one round, at most two, in my opinion, for Kambosos, but total domination by Devin Haney. Kenny.
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of what you said. I do also think that Devin Haney was grabbing way too much. He made the fight sloppy, which in my sense made it boring. Sloppy when he wasn't jabbing. That jab was fucking beautiful. That jab was amazing. It was fast, precise, powerful. Yeah, the jab was fantastic. But besides the jab, I felt the rest of the fight was boring. I wasn't fighting sleep, but I wasn't necessarily up on my seat excited watching the fight. The Stephen Fulton Roman fight was way more exciting than the Devin Haney Kambosos fight, and that's my actual opinion. Great job to Devin Haney doing what he had to do, being smart out there, sticking to the game plan, staying composed, and staying on top of his game plan, not fighting not falling into the whole fighting thing. He said that several times. He's like, it seemed like he wanted to fight. He was trying to get me into trade, but I stuck with the game plan. I did what I came out here to do, which was smart. But I do think that if Devin Haney actually tried, there were points that Devin Haney probably could have stopped Kambosos, because Kambosos was all out of breath and wobbly and getting tagged with big punches. Devin Haney just didn't necessarily go for it. So it's a double-edged sword, that one, right? He stuck to his game plan, and that's very wise and very great of him at his age to be able to stick to a game plan. But he also didn't go for the knockout, which he could have gotten. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword on that one. Congratulations to Haney. I do wish that they do the fight again, only because, as I always state, after you fight somebody, you learn a lot from fighting them the first time. It's not that the outcome is going to change from fight 1 to fight 2, but I do think that Kambosos would do a little better, and I do think that if there is a rematch clause and they had that down on paper and that they signed that, it's only right for the man to get his shot. I'm all about legitimacy and contracts and real shit, and if that contract was signed, forget Joe Tessitore, forget anybody else's opinion. That fight needs to happen again. Not because I want to see it, not because y'all want to see it, because the contract was signed.
No, I agree 100%. And I felt that Joe Tessitore yet again was acting unprofessional.
I don't like him.
Bro, you're there to call the play-by-play action. You're not there to pontificate and denigrate these fighters. The criticism of these fighters, that's actually Tim Bradley's job. That's actually, to a certain extent, Mark Kriegel's job. That's to a certain extent, not to a certain extent, it is the job of, Andre Ward when he's doing the cards, right? That's not Joe Tessitore's job. Joe Tessitore is there to call a jab, call a right hand, call a left hook, give a description of what's happening in the ring. I don't need to hear nor do I care about whether Joe Tessitore wants to see a rematch or not. And to your point, Kenny, if there's a contractual obligation, Team Haney should be men of their words, and I'm sure they will be. And the only reason I think this might not happen is if George Kambosos decides not to do it, or if they come up with some kind of a financial package that he can accept to step aside from a fight. Right now, a lot of people, and right before I get to the super chat there with Big Papa Pump, All right. A lot of people were upset about the delays between these fights. Usually I'd be with them, but I'm going to be honest. It worked out perfect for me. You know why? Because when they were doing all of that bullshit of, extended time, I think it was over an hour at one point between the fights, I was watching the Showtime card. I was watching Stephen Fulton, and I was also watching David Morrell Jr. What a performance by David Morrell Jr. And what a performance by Stephen Fulton. Both dominated in different ways. One with an attacking, aggressive, knockout punching style. And the other, using the sweet science, hit and not be hit. Total ring generalship in there, that fight. Stephen Fulton Jr. is a problem. Kenny.
Before we do move on to that, just get to slide tendency.
My fault. Slide tendencies, my bad. I gotta, I'm gonna punch myself a little bit. I forgot. All right. He says, with the super chat, looks like Bob is poo-pooing the rematch clause. He absolutely is, but you know why Bob's doing that? Bob doesn't think he can get money with the rematch.
I could see that.
Bob is seeing a financial loss in the rematch. Bob doesn't like financial losses. Bob likes, to be able to save that money that could go towards buying a mansion in Beverly Hills. He doesn't want to lose money. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that, Kenny, or straight to Stephen Fulton Jr. and, of course, David Morrell Jr. There we go.
All right, here we go. Yeah, the only reason Bob would that is financial reasons. I've learned that about Bob Arum. Everything that he does is for finances. He don't care about nobody's feelings, no fighter, nothing. He cares about is them dollars. I respect that. But yeah, here we go. I don't really care about David Morrell Jr. No, I'm talking shit. I'm saying that because I already know how this conversation is gonna go. But I'll go with Stephen Fulton first because I see the David Morrell Jr. being a much larger conversation. Stephen Fulton, that is my guy. There's one thing that happened during that Stephen Fulton fight that I did not like, and that is that the announcers want to be like, oh, well, him and Jaron Ennis, they come from the same school. Like bigging up Jaron Ennis as if Jaron Ennis is the bigger, better, more accomplished fighter than Stephen Fulton. Get the fuck out of here. Jaron Ennis ain't fight no fucking body. All right, now back to my man Stephen Fulton. Here we go. That's my guy. He beat the out of Figueroa. He beat the out of Roman. I'm all for it. Let's fucking go. And at the end, I think it was round 11 and 12. Roman switched from his defensive style, and he was bringing it to Roman, trying to knock Roman out. But Roman, he lasted, but he was getting tagged. Stephen Fulton showed us he can box. Stephen Fulton showed us that he can get in there and trade too. Stephen Fulton is that guy. Don't fuck with him at 122. Don't mess with Stephen Fulton at 122. And now David Morrell Jr., the guy who was throwing power punch combinations and getting countered by a nobody. The guy that they say will beat the other David. What are we doing here? Battle of the Davids Part 2. And I'm taking Benavidez. I am not taking David Morrell Jr. with all those counter punches he was getting caught with. But at the same time, with the conversation we was having on Twitter, it is very, very true. They both do get hit a lot. They both do throw a hell of a lot of power punches. And it's a fight that we have to see. We have to see that.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about David Morrell Jr. a little bit later. And I noticed the same thing, though, first, when it comes to the Stephen Fulton cheerleading. Look, not Stephen Fulton, Jaron Ennis cheerleading. I get it. He's a Showtime fighter. I get it. They want to do some promotion of him, when he's not fighting. They want to keep his name out there, right? They want people talking about him. But you're absolutely right. He's not a world champion, all right? Stephen Fulton Jr. is a two-time world champion, unified world champion. He holds 2 titles. So let's just give him his respect. I mean, the one thing right now is, obviously, they're both from Philly. All right, but that was Stephen Fulton Jr.'s night. And also, let's face facts. Jaron Ennis, he fights more with power, right? And, so far what we've seen from a cool boy Steph Fulton is that he's a ring general that boxes and moves, right? So I've seen him go to war in the trenches, but he's not always inclined to do that. Now, when it comes to David Morrell Jr., he's holding a secondary title, so that doesn't really mean much. I mean, he's basically taking care of mandatories and people. Well, that's his job actually in the WBA, to take care of any mandatories so that Canelo doesn't have to fight him. I don't really think fighting Canelo is a good idea. And later, I'm going to give my thoughts about him fighting David Benavidez. And we'll see how that goes with Kenny. But what I will say is, when comparing him to David Benavidez, David Benavidez also has got touched up. Even in his last fight, Lemieux was touching him up. You go back to fights like the Gavril fight, he was getting touched up. So they're not really known as defensive guys necessarily. But we'll digress from that one a little bit, because, Tony's been accusing me of capping. Okay, but Maestro doesn't cap. In fact, I'm not even wearing a cap today, something that I oftentimes do. But I don't know if Tony's going to agree with what we're going to discuss next. I mean, maybe he will, maybe he'll have an aha moment, so to speak. But I appreciate my brother Tony over there in the chat. Everybody's got to make sure they check down the Breakdown podcast on the Undefeated podcast. But look, I'm going to go over my top 3 fighters in the lightweight division. All right. And then I'm going to go over my top 5 fighters in boxing. Okay. So without any further ado, all right, it's time to get started. All right. With Maestro's top 3. And anytime Kenny wants to chime in, disagree, or agree, he's free to do it. All right. So Maestro's top 3. Here we go. What is my top 3 in the lightweight division? Number 1, Devin Haney, the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Devin
was that buffer of the world.
Actually, you'll catch it in a second. Devin Haney.
That's with the dreads. I always
David Diamante.
There we go. Diamante.
All right. So number 1, Devin the Dream Haney, the current lightweight world champion, the only lightweight world champion, by the way. Okay, we're not accepting UEFA EuroLeague titles on MaestroA. And I know Kenny doesn't like those Reggie belts either. All right. No. Number 1, Devin Haney. Number 2, we got to give it up for Vasyl Lomachenko.
I like the way this list is going.
Vasyl Lomachenko.
I like it.
Unified lightweight champion of the world. Vasyl Lomachenko. All right. He's number 2. Now here we go with number 3. Ryan Garcia.
Damn.
Ding the bell. Ding the bell. Ryan Garcia. Now,
damn.
I see
we got here.
I see some names out there. I'm looking at Tony's name.
Tony Ellaby. He put tank number 2 over Loma. Tony Ellaby over here. Stop it.
Number 1, Haney. Number 2, Tank. Number 3, Loma. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you my breakdown in a moment for the guy who runs the breakdowns. All right. Andre Rodriguez says Haney, Loma, Kambosos. All right.
I love that. That's how I'd have it. That's straight off of accomplishments. That's exactly how I'd have it.
There you go. Because we do accomplishments here. All right. And I was debating whether I go whether I go Kambosos number 3 or whether I go Garcia number 3. But a strong case can be made for Kambosos being number 3. I mean, he took out Teofimo Lopez. He did hold 3 world championship belts. Philly says Loma, Haney, Tank. All right. Now, I'm going to explain it from MEZBX. What the fuck has Ryan done to be in the top 3?
I agree with him, though.
Well, I'm going to give it to you right now. Let's look at Tank as an example. All right. Tank Davis at lightweight. What's his best fight? Chat, help me out. What's Tank Davis's best fight at 135? Chat, help me out. Because I'll tell you what, as far as I can see, the Ryan Garcia win over Luke Campbell beats all of those. Now, Kenny, if I'm wrong, let me know. But the 3 wins at 135 for Tank Davis are a 40-year-old Yuriorkis Gamboa on a torn Achilles. Okay. We also have Isaac Cruz, also went 12 rounds. All right. And then we have Rolly, 14-fight novice Romero. Are any of those wins as good as Luke Campbell?
Nah, but it's all just better. Well, it's better put together than Ryan Garcia's. You know what I'm saying? Look, bro.
At lightweight?
Oh, so you're gonna say Duno?
I mean, those guys are not any worse than Rolly. They're just not. They're not any worse than a 40-year-old Yuriorkis Gamboa who's been knocked out about 20 times, literally, or knocked down
man.
Times.
If we're gonna do this off accomplishments, I'm gonna give the doodle belt. I'm gonna give that at least some type of merit in my system. Ryan Garcia hasn't even gotten a doodle belt. You know what I'm saying?
We got the WBC and he got the WBC interim. That's no worse than the WBA regular.
I guess. Doesn't the WBA also have an interim?
Well, yeah, they do, but it's below the regular. So here's my thing. I'm gonna adjust my list after consulting.
You should do a top 5. You should do a top 5 so that you can include Gervonta and Ryan in that.
They would be in my top 5 potentially. But I got to put Kambosos up there. Actually, you convinced me, Kenny. Kambosos should be number 3. Kambosos should be number 3. Number 1, Haney. Number 2, Loma. Number 3, Kambosos. So that's my new list. I have been convinced by my comrade Kenny T. So we agree on that list?
Yeah, I'm fully for that list. I'm all good with that. I'd put Gervonta 4th and Ryan 5th, maybe.
There you go. So we've come to some consensus there on the top 3 fighters in the lightweight division. All right. Now, let's move on to my next list. All right. And we'll see what people think over here. Maestro's June 2020 top 3 lightweights. We're going to adjust that one there to say Kambosos. But it says top 10. All right. But it's actually top 5 with another 5 honorable mentions. All right. Top 5. So I got to adjust the graphic, but I put 10 fighters up there. The bottom, they can be placed in any order, really. Not in any order, but I didn't rank those guys. This is my top 5. Number 1, Alexander Usyk. All right. Former cruiserweight champion of the world, moved up to heavyweight, took out Anthony Joshua. Number 2, Naoya Inoue. As far as I'm concerned, he's already undisputed at his weight class, really.
I think you disrespecting the next guy, bro. I think you disrespect. I got to tell you, I think you disrespecting Canelo by putting Inoue above him.
Okay, we'll get into that. All right.
We could get into that for sure.
definitely a multiple weight class world champion. No Reggie belts involved. All legit world titles. Okay. And as far as I'm concerned, is really undisputed. But okay, if everybody needs to see him face the WBO champ, Paul Butler, I get it. All right. Number 3. And to Kenny's point, I could have gone either way with 2 and 3. All right. I'm going Saul Canelo Alvarez. All right. Number 4, Jermell Charlo, the undisputed champion at 154. All right. He's always been in good fights. All right. And when he's lost, he's always, and by the way, lost controversially, or there was a controversial fight because he lost to Harrison. He thought he won. He came back. He beat him convincingly. All right. The first fight with Castaño was a draw. All right. They ran it back. He beat him convincingly, obviously. So I got to give it up to Jermell Charlo. He is an undisputed champion. And my number 5, we just saw him Saturday night. He's the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Devin Haney. Haney. Put some respect on his name. He deserves to be in the top 5. And by the way, this isn't pound for pound. This is mostly based on accomplishment, Kenny. Do we need to reorder this list?
The only one that I think needs to be reordered on this, actually, Naoya needs to. If this is fully based off of accomplishments, then Naoya should be number 5. Because Usyk, Canelo, Charlo, and Haney have all been undisputed in their weight classes.
Okay.
Inoue hasn't been undisputed in shit. He's amazing. He passes the eye test with above flying colors, and he also has a hell of a lot of accomplishments. But he's just, his accomplishments just don't match up with the rest of the guys.
Well, they don't if you really think he needs to be Paul Butler to be considered the undisputed, he's the Ring Magazine, he's the WBC, he's the IBF, he's the WBA, but I get it. But he gets consideration from me because he was also the best in his division at lower weight classes and is a multiple weight world champion. So does that get any consideration, Kenny? Does he go all the way to 5?
I definitely respect that. Maybe he'll go to 4 above Devin Haney, because Devin Haney just became undisputed and his accomplishments before becoming undisputed aren't that many.
I got it. So we might need to reorder that. Here's what I'm gonna agree to. All right, I've consulted with my partner, my comrade Kenny. All right,
damn, but I just saw some of the other names, and there's some disrespect in there too, man. Like looking at the other honorable mentions.
Any one of them could have been put in, or a few of them could have been put in this list in the top 5.
Bro, Yeah. Look, Crawford could probably go in that top 5.
Yeah, he's only off of it, guys. I'm a big Terrence Crawford fan. If he beats Errol Spence Jr., I put him at number 1. Literally, I put him at number 1. He would be a 2-weight undisputed world champion. He shoots straight to number 1. But right now, he's fought really one name at 147, and it's, a guy that was almost ready to retire and focus on his podcasting career, Sean Porter. All right. I'm talking about right now. What have you done for me lately in the division that you're fighting in? So that's the only reason he's not in that top 5, in my opinion. Okay. I'm not doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I'm not doing what if this guy was this weight and how would he fight that guy who's another weight? No, we're going off accomplishment.
I don't even know if Josh Taylor should be on this list. He just lost his last fight, and he won it, but controversially won it. We all argue that he lost that fight.
So he shouldn't be an honorable mention. I see Juan Estrada hovering around a lot of people's top 10 lists, and he, by a lot of people's eyes, lost to Chocolatito. So a win is a win.
Chocolatito is another great fighter, and Estrada's a great fighter. Josh Taylor lost against somebody who nobody knew, somebody who he should have defeated, somebody who went in there with basic skills and fundamental them out.
No. First of all, you got to say you felt he lost, Because on the record, he won.
So you tell him? I said that earlier. He controversially won.
Yeah, okay. Use the word controversial, but he does have the W. Yes or no? Yes. You don't want to answer the question. So look again. These are not in order, guys. These are not in order in any way. I just put them there as honorable mentions. I should have actually done this bottom part in alphabetical order so that there's just no confusion. That would have probably looked better. Also, if Errol Spence Jr. beats Terrence Crawford, he immediately shoots into the top 5 without question because he will be undisputed, you know? So that's without question. Josh Taylor is really still undisputed in his weight class. He did win the World Boxing Super Series. He did dominate and nearly knock out Ramirez. Okay. I mean, he's got good wins. He beat Prograis too. All right. And he had a little hiccup, but he still got the W. But I get it. All right. Shakur Stevenson, 2-weight world champion, just finished unifying belts. He's got to be on my list. And as the Stephen Fulton Jr., he's also a unified world champion. So what I am willing to do here and adjust my list, Kenny, is I'm willing to make an adjustment here. And I'm willing to, I'm gonna agree with you. I'm going to put Inoue at behind Canelo. I'm gonna put Inoue behind Canelo. But let me tell you what: if Inoue blasts out Paul Butler, he's going right back to number 2. He's going right back to number 2 if he blasts out Butler, because at that point, I mean, he's undisputed. There's no dispute. Look, let me ask you in the chat a question. Does anybody really think that a guy who won his title because the champion was sweating out his last few pounds in the sauna has a legitimate claim to being the best in the world at that division? Does anybody actually think that?
No, look, I don't think anybody thinks that. I don't think that. It's just that you got to get the belt, regardless of if you know a clown has it or if Casimiro still had it. It is what it is. You got to go get that final belt.
Well, but
like stats, it means everything.
I get it, but Casimiro, he didn't even lose it on the scales. He literally lost it in the sauna, which in most countries is not a problem at all. But
let's hope that they get some type of a fight in, right? That's Casimiro and Butler before Inoue heals and goes up in weight class, and then you know that we could be talking about Inoue fighting Casimiro instead of fighting Butler. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm adjusting the list over here, or just so that everybody sees that here on Mano, we do, you know, debate things through. We talk them out, and you know, we come to some kind of consensus.
We need to make an eye test list too, because there's a lot of dudes that are passing the eye test with flying colors. Not, you know, we need to have two tests.
Where off the top of your head, where would Boots Ennis be on the eye test?
Definitely behind Stephen Fulton.
Okay, definitely behind Stephen Fulton. Okay,
Stephen Fulton would be up there in my list.
Okay, where would David Benavidez be on the eye test?
He wouldn't be. He'd be somewhere in the middle.
But you're big on Benavidez.
I ain't say all that now.
You like Benavidez.
Benavidez is my defense against Morrell Jr. You know what I'm saying?
All right, fair enough. Where would Shakur Stevenson be on the KO Kenny eye test?
He'd be high up there. It's probably still behind Fulton, but he'd be high up there.
Behind Fulton, huh?
Bro, I think Fulton is one of the best boxers in boxing, period.
I know. I was just asking you. I agree with you. I actually agree with
amazing.
You.
He's amazing.
I mean, he's not going to beat Shakur, but that's because Shakur's bigger than him. And we're not doing pound for pound, right? We're doing
not at all. Eye
skills.
Test.
We're doing skills, pay the bills, eye test. All right. See, look, again, Melo, the only reason that I think that Crawford's not on this list is because he's a welterweight right now, and his accomplishments at welterweight have not been that great. Okay. But if he beats Errol Spence Jr., he goes to number 1. All right. Just to clarify that. Let me go to Tony real quick, and then we'll continue the where would you place it eye test.
We have to understand too, this is not a pound for pound list. This is a top 5 list. It's much different than the pound for pound list.
Much different. So Tony's going my pound for pound top 10 boxers. Okay. Ours isn't a top 10, just as Kenny said, but I'm gonna hear you out. Number 1, Terrence Crawford. Number 2, Canelo Alvarez. Okay. Crawford over Canelo. Interesting. Number 3, Naoya Inoue. Number 4, Alexander Usyk. Number 5, Errol Spence. Number 6, Devin Haney. Number 7, Jermell Charlo. Number 8, Josh Taylor. Number 9, Tyson Fury.
Damn. Yo, Tony Ellaby's capping for his mate, bro. Woo! Tony Ellaby he's putting in the promotion work.
Yo, he's doing the PR heavy for Tank Davis. Heavy for Tank Davis. Based on what? Based on what?
I guess the eye test is passing with flying colors. I don't know. He's like, he knocked out Rolly. Yeah, he's the man. Best fighter in the world.
He knocked out a 14 fight novice. We get it. Big whoop, but we get it. All right. Who else? I was gonna give you one more for the eye test after Shakur. All right. Based on the eye test, Dimitri Bivol.
Big fundamental. He's still going behind Fulton. He's going behind Shakur. He's probably still above Jaron Ennis. And no, you guys gonna think I'm hating on Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis is looking amazing, yes, but he's fighting nobodies. Come on, bro. I could go in the ring against the people he's fighting and look amazing just like him. You know what I'm saying? Stop playing. I'm not a boxer. I can fight, but I'm not a boxer. Let's be real.
Oh, we got none other than Muhammad joining us. Muhammad, what's good?
How's it going, Maestro? Big up to you and Kenny. I know you from Undefeated Podcast, so I've been following your channel since catching Undefeated Podcast end of last year. So big up to you both.
That's
big
what's
up to Tony and everyone on the chat.
I'm the undefeated heavyweight world champion of that debating. Okay, when it comes to that,
he was live yesterday. I can't lie with you and Tony. So
yeah, well, I'm gonna be defending the title in an optional defense come Monday. Black Smoke will be on Monday Night Smoke. But what are your thoughts, Muhammad?
Based on what you said after in terms of your top 5 list, I'm okay with it. I actually did a pound for pound list where, again, with pound for pound list, if you see the Ring magazine, and the ESPN, every single time they update it, there's a whole social media debate that goes through it. So I'm okay with it. In terms of accomplishments itself, I can see why your list with Usyk, even Canelo, because with Canelo, like I was thinking initially, when you mentioned about Crawford in terms of what has he done for me lately, I initially thought, well, Canelo just lost, but then again, he's still the undisputed super middleweight champion. Like, he hasn't been, his titles haven't been vacated, and he's still the still the champion until unless he loses to Golovkin. Again, we can have another discussion there. But just generally, I'm okay with the list itself. But just want to make a couple of points in terms of the Devin Haney stuff, if you don't mind. I know you guys probably had enough of it because
go for it.
It's just I understand your point of view in terms of the fight wasn't nothing, because again, it's not a fight you'd rewatch again unless Haney's fighting again just to see if there's any things he needs to work on, because it wasn't really aesthetically appealing. But I think for me, thinking of sort of the difficulties he had going to us, because for some reason these days anyone that flies over, it becomes a big thing in terms of, all right, you're already at a massive disadvantage, which I didn't think it was like that in the past. But nowadays anyone who travels, it seems like 25% of the winning chance is gone. Like, it's like the narrative's there. So maybe that could play a part. So maybe he didn't want to overcome. But I even saw when he fought Jojo Diaz, there's a little bit of hesitation there. So maybe it might be attributed to his fighting style. But I mentioned it yesterday in the Undefeated podcast on the stream that I was happy he won, because what it means that if he lost that fight, a lot of people would have been on him saying never take risks. And I'm a fan who likes fighters who take risks, because I want to see unifications. I'm a big proponent of unifications, fighters, taking risks. Because let's not forget, I mentioned it yesterday as well. He left a one fight deal or per fight deal with Eddie to have a 3-fight deal with Bob Arum, and he's now has to oblige by potentially a rematch with Kambosos again back in Australia, and potentially with the 3-fight deal, Bob might throw in a Lomachenko or a Shakur Stevenson, so he might be fighting tough. It might not be, there's no mandatory challengers or someone else from the ranking who we never heard of fighting him. He'll be throwing the tough, and I want to see those tough fights, because if you think about it, it's quite a, I know this point people used to say in the past about Sugar Ray Leonard versus Hearns or De La Hoya versus Trinidad. But the point I want to make by using those examples is those guys were in their mid-20s when they fought each other. Trinidad versus De La Hoya. Correct me if I'm wrong, if they were in the close to the 30s, but they were in their prime. And I know Devin Haney might not be in his prime, but if you see Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard, they were in the early 20s. And Haney versus Shakur Stevenson, if that happened early next year, as an example, I'll be down for that, because you have two, prospect stroke elite guys at it. And I'm a more proponent for that. And that's one of the reasons why I was really ecstatic that Haney won, because if he lost that, there'll be a whole new narrative about not taking risks. Why is he joining Bob Arum, etc.? I know Bob Arum has his own issues. I mean, I'm not doubting that for a second. But one of the things I'm happy is the fact that Bob Arum's lightweight stable is the best, I believe, at the moment. And adding Devin Haney to that, potentially we're going to have a cluster of fights there lined up. Especially if Lomachenko comes back from the war, etc. We got a bunch of fights there coming up. And I mentioned this yesterday about Ryan Garcia as well. Sorry if I'm carrying over. I know others might want to come on as well.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But we do have somebody waiting to come on. So a last point, please. But you're making great points. Go for it.
Just the Ryan Garcia thing quickly. Do you guys believe this Tank fight will come to fruition? I saw Oscar made a tweet today saying about the DAZN, etc. But wasn't Oscar the one that they couldn't do a deal for Munguia versus Charlo because of the DAZN Showtime thing? So I'm wondering how that Tank Ryan Garcia thing comes to fruition, because you couldn't give me Charlo versus Munguia, which I'm not gonna lie. When I heard the news that they were in talks and Munguia apparently agreed, well, according to Steven Espinoza, but again, I take it with a pinch of salt with any news like this. But I was really chuffed. I thought, Munguia versus Charlo, great middleweight fight, 2 top 5 guys in the middleweight division, and then they couldn't do a deal because of this Showtime DAZN thing. So I don't know how they overcome this Showtime DAZN thing. With the Tank versus Garcia fight, like, is it just all hype again? Like, I don't want to be fooled again. You know what I mean?
There's two things there. First of all, I mean, Ryan Garcia literally said "fuck Golden Boy" and dapped up Leonard Ellaby. I'm sure you all saw that. So I don't know. Maybe he's gonna really push Golden Boy to make the fight. But the other side of the issue is that Tank is actually out of his contract, from what we've all been hearing from Mayweather Promotions. So there shouldn't be any impediment from Tank's side in terms of doing some type of deal with a fighter from any promotional company. But the truth is, only time will tell, because Kenny said it earlier. I mean, pretty much other than Luke Campbell, Ryan hasn't really been in that many meaningful fights. And to be honest, the only real name on Tank Davis's record is Pedraza. That's it. So that's my thought on that, Mohammed. But Please do come back because I know it's really late out there for you. I appreciate your contribution.
No worries, man. I normally watch your shows the day after you do this because I normally wake up. So I watch your whole 2 hours, whole shebang. So I thought I'd call in because I'm watching it live today. But big up to you guys, both. Big up to everyone on the chat.
Big up.
Big up, brother. Thank you for calling in, man.
Oh, that was Muhammad, and that was great. All right.
Definitely a lot of info. Great info.
Tony the Tiger used to say. Okay. I don't know.
Great.
Exactly. Philly Drew Irish, you're up. What's going on, Reggie?
Not much, but I just gotta address some shit. Tell you, when you put Tank in your pound for pound list, that is pure capping.
Tony Ellaby.
Well, he's saying that you're capping a lot in the chat, and he's doing more capping than you, from what I've seen, and everything. But another thing is, you can't put Terrence Crawford as number one pound for pound because, one, yeah, he was a multiple division champion. He was undisputed at 140, but who has he fought lately? His best fight at 147 was Sean Porter, which he stopped. He did do that, and he couldn't, or Spence couldn't stop him. But I really have Usyk as number one because I believe Usyk is possibly the best out there right now besides Tyson Fury at heavyweight because he's beating guys under home turf as a cruiserweight and a heavyweight.
I think Usyk beats Tyson Fury.
I think Tyson Fury slightly beats Usyk, but that's another debate for another time. But another thing is, like, been reading the chat and everything, and I agree with you, Maestro. I think the holding was a little bit too much, and people are calling it great masterclass offense and defense. Holding's not defense.
Well, then those people need to then say that John Ruiz is one of the most masterful defensive heavyweight fighters of all time.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Defense is boxing your way out with punches or moving out the way. That's defense. Haney held the guy when he tried to get inside the whole time. And tell you the truth, if you look, that just shows you Devin Haney does not have an inside game. He does not like fighting on the inside. And if Kambosos wasn't Cam Booty Saturday night, he would have nailed Haney to the stomach every time he tried holding him. The body was wide open. That's the thing to me. He never let his hands go.
I definitely.
Sorry, go ahead, Kenny. No, okay.
Yeah, you go for it.
No, real quick. The other thing that was there to do was that classic kind of Mike Tyson under the jab and then go to the body, because Devin Haney was really extending himself on those jabs. I mean, I would have liked to see him at least try to fight at levels and really get down low, move his feet quick, and try to get in on the inside. You know, because he is kind of a counter puncher. So if I was his trainer, I would have been drilling that nonstop personally.
Here's the thing, Maestro. I saw your post, like the cover of your video, the picture of Haney when he's throwing the jab. That's a punch that leaves him wide open to get hit. And tell you the truth, if you're looking at one fighter that can exploit that, it's Lomachenko. He can, because he has superior footwork, superior hand speed. He's a southpaw. He can explore all those things, and Haney ain't gonna be able to hold him like that. And that's why I tell people, Lomachenko's gonna stop Devin Haney with a body shot.
I think Lomachenko stops Devin Haney too. I don't know how, but I think he definitely stops Devin Haney as well.
Well, I can tell you, if a knockout is gonna come from Lomachenko, it's going to be with his footwork, because what he does is he fights very well at angles. What he does is he also fights very well at levels, because he dips low, he changes levels, he changes speed, he changes direction, right? I don't think he'd allow Devin Haney to hold that way against him. I think he'd get out of that, much in the way that Usyk was able to do it with Joshua when Joshua tried to hold him. So I think it would be that, and I also think it would be combination punching. That's my view of it. But it's definitely going to be a good fight should it happen, because Haney's not able to. Haney won't be able to do to Loma what he did to George Kambosos Jr. He won't. The issue I don't know though is whether or not Haney will still be at 135 for that fight to happen. especially if he has to take a rematch at 135 to defend the lightweight championship against Kambosos in the rematch.
Well,
He was already talking about going up in weight to 140. Devin Haney, that is. So
what people don't think is Haney might just move up in weight altogether and avoid the Loma fight, avoid the rematch with Kambosos, and maybe get a fight with Teofimo and everything, or Josh Taylor.
Yeah, honestly, I like the Josh Taylor fight more than the Teo fight because to me, I want to see Teo work his way back up to the top. I mean, he just lost to George Kambosos Jr.
He's lying too much, talking too much false shit. He need to work his way back up. Fuck that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he can't even admit that George Kambosos beat him. I mean, and then what? He gets to fight the undisputed lightweight champion in his next fight, or his fight after his next fight. I don't really know about that one.
And like to question someone, like I saw someone saying Loma would duck Haney again. Loma didn't duck Haney. It was a negotiation with Bob and Eddie trying to make the fight because Eddie wanted to bring Loma to the zone and Bob didn't want to. Bob did the franchise route so he can get an in-house fight with Teofimo. So people saying Loma's ducking Haney, you need to know.
Fighters don't duck. Definitely not fighters like Loma. Sorry to cut you off, Philly.
No, that's cool. I just have to bring that up because people want to always bring that Loma ducked Haney. But here's the thing. When Haney said something in chat on Twitter, Loma answered him back. Haney didn't say shit.
So, yeah, I wasn't aware of that one. But there was a time when I wasn't really too active on Twitter. I'm trying to get active on Twitter more a little bit and on IG. Look for me in the description box. Like, subscribe to this video. Share it if you can. Make sure you subscribe to the Shoe Shine podcast with Philly Drew Irish. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. Kenny as well. Any last thoughts, Drew?
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell people like this right now. If you're gonna put Tank on your pound for pound list, you better have some good points because if not, people like me, Maestro, and Kenny will make you look hella bad.
That is definitely a fact.
Big time.
100%. Philly Drew, thank you for joining us, fam. Make sure you check out the Shoe Shine with Philly Drew Irish. Thank you so much, Philly. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Philly said. Yeah. You know, and I often
Muhammad too.
Yeah, Muhammad too. Both of them. Yeah, Muhammad, great call. The thing with a lot of the ducking narrative is what a lot of fans don't necessarily realize is that it's the business people behind the fighters, right? That are, trying to get the best money that they can get, trying to build relationships with networks. The PBC's trying to build a relationship with Showtime. They're trying to build a relationship with Fox. They don't want to send over their best fighter to fight on DAZN. Same thing, or not even best fighter, but, any fighter, whether it's Charlo, who's very good, or Tank Davis, who's very popular. Same is true with Bob Arum. I mean, he doesn't necessarily just want to send over Loma to fight on DAZN when he's trying to been building a relationship with none other than ESPN. So, what do you think, Kenny?
I don't know if Devin's gonna stay with ESPN as it is. I don't really look into contract works and all that stuff. I don't know if Devin's gonna stay with ESPN. I know Loma's gonna come back and be with ESPN whenever he does come back. But when is Loma going to come back? There's so many questions that aren't answered when it comes to these two gentlemen fighting and like the whole stable where they're gonna be at. Devin Haney was just with Matchroom and DAZN, so who says that he doesn't go back after he's done with the Kambosos' fight? Like him coming to ESPN, to my knowledge, originally was just to fight Kambosos for the first fight and for the rematch. After that, he was a free man. So if that is the case, if that is still the case, then who says that Devin Haney's going to stay with ESPN Top Rank?
It's a 3-fight deal, Kenny.
Gotcha, 3-fight deal. So if it's a 3-fight deal, then he'll fight somebody. Maybe he will fight Loma afterwards.
That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping that he'll fight Loma for the third and final fight. And obviously drop the titles to Loma, but I don't know if he's going to be able to continue making 135 pounds. I mean, he's been talking for a while as you said earlier, Kenny, about moving up to 140.
Yeah. And look, I'm all for people moving up in weight class. Listen to your bodies if that's what you need to do. I think he'll be stronger at 142. I think maybe those punches will do a little more damage because Kambosos is a little short for that weight class, but Kambosos was kind of matching up with Teofimo in height, and Devin Haney was much taller than Kambosos. So, not draining, but cutting down to a specific weight past where your body needs you to be will make you weaker than you are supposed to be. So who knows? Maybe him going to 140 will allow him to be more powerful and to have a stronger chin and to be a better Devin Haney, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He'll probably be a stronger fighter. He'll have better legs at 140.
And
people call him chinny, but what a lot of people don't understand is that when you weight drain yourself, it reduces your ability to take shots. And a lot of the people that are rating Tank Davis highly, what they never want to talk about is the fact that Pedraza was killing himself to make 130 and was hella weak. I was at that fight in 2017. What they don't want to acknowledge is that Mario Barrios was sweating down, shrinking down to 140. And you know what? You know how you know that's the case, Kenny? Immediately after those fights, they moved up in weight. Immediately after, they moved up in weight. What does that tell you?
They was having trouble.
It tells you that they were having trouble and they realized that, look, I'm weak as fuck at this low weight class. I'm killing myself. It's not to my benefit, okay, to stay in this weight class and not be able to do the kind of things I can do because I'm weak. I'm weakened from the weight cut. So, I mean, it's a fact. Appreciate you, Nopal. He's congratulating us on the 50th episode. I appreciate that, my brother. He is another day numero uno, day one. He's a day one right there. So, Kenny, before we wrap up, bro, I want to ask you about something. I want to ask you about this real quick. Okay. I got to ask you. Do we need to put some respect on his name?
Not off of that last fight.
Not off of the last fight. I know we were going back and forth in the chat. And by the way, I'm going to share the link to our Google chat so that if anybody wants to join in on that, they can. We restarted it again recently. No respect on his name.
I mean, look, he was throwing wild combinations with power. Yes, they had some speed on them, but they was wild ass combinations. His combinations didn't necessarily have any science to it. It was just wild combinations. He might as well have been doing that shit that little kids do where they just start doing like little fan hands kind of to, I like trying to do a whirlwind with their arms. I don't fucking know. And he got countered way too much for me to put some respect on his name off of that last fight. We know David Morrell Jr. is destined for greatness. We know the guy can fight, the guy can box. We know he's not afraid of anybody. We know he's going for the biggest, toughest challenges that he can get at the moment. And we know he's been increasing the level of difficulty from every opponent to the next opponent. But I don't think it's time to put some respect on his name. Look, Zuldo's fought way more truck drivers than he has, and I don't sprinkle no respect on Zuldo's name. So look, man, Morrell Jr. can't get no respect just yet. Oh, and look, and look at this. If Morrell Jr. and Zuldo were ever to fight, Morrell Jr. is knocking the fuck out of Zuldo. Quote that here. When Morrell Jr. goes to 175, if Zuldo's still there, Zuldo will get knocked the fuck out. You quote me on that, goddammit.
I'm too much fire through the headphones. I had to take them off real quick. Okay, but I don't know. You need to put some respect on Zuldo's name. And by the way, that was David Morrell Jr. But you know what, Kenny? We always find the middle ground, me and you, about everything. We talk it out. We come to an understanding. And usually we end up agreeing on stuff after we hear each other out. Yes or no?
Facts.
All right, so here's my thing. He is a huge talent, all right? He's done tremendous things against C-level fighters, all right? He's passed the eye test, okay? He's knocked out guys that, went the distance almost their entire careers. We get it. But, he is possibly biting off a little bit more than he can chew by talking up a fight with Benavidez. And you know what? What convinced me of that was this that dropped today. All right. And what dropped today, Kenny, is his own trainer. All right. Ronnie Shields says, Morrell's trainer on fighting Benavidez next, he says, I don't want to rush him into something.
Smart man.
I don't want to rush him into something. David Morrell's respected veteran trainer believes in his talented boxer's ability and potential. Shields also appreciates Morrell's ambition, which led the unbeaten WBA world, we'll just call him the regular title holder at super middleweight, to state Saturday night that fighting David Benavidez next would be perfect. All right, so essentially he's the Tank Davis of the 168-pound division. He's holding the secondary title. We all know that Canelo's undisputed at that weight class. We all know that Devin Haney's undisputed at 135. But he's calling out. He's calling out guys like specifically David Morrell Jr. And he says, I don't know, to tell you the truth. As a trainer, you know, my job is to assess everything and see that he does well and didn't do so well. And then I'll put that against what I think Benavidez is. If I like it, I'll say, okay, I'm good with it. If I don't, then I'll say, let's hold off and wait. Yo, that's a wise man right there. That's the kind of guy you want training you, as far as I'm concerned. I love the fact that David Morrell Jr. wants to take on Benavidez. I love it. I think it would be a very exciting fight right now if they fought. But am I convinced that he'd beat Benavidez? Absolutely not. Am I convinced that he will take shots from Benavidez? Absolutely. Okay. And what we really don't want, if we are interested in David Morrell and care about his future, is like a Fernando Vargas, Felix Trinidad situation. All right. And those watching the chat will know, or watching us in the chat will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, Kenny.
I completely agree with you. I think it's a little early. I think that they need to continue building him the way that they're doing. Obviously, we saw some flaws this last fight and some things that he could fix and correct with his combinations and with, you know, timing them a little better and not going so wild. Also, his defense need a little work. So I agree with Ronnie Shields. It is great for him to not necessarily take it back to the drawing board and change the whole game plan, but, you know, go adjust a little bit. Go adjust a little bit on defense. Go adjust a little bit on not getting hit, because a couple of times that he got countered, it looked like not like he was buzzed, but like he was shocked. Like, oh my God, you know, like, so you just don't want him to get hit too much. And like you said, get knocked out like Vargas got knocked out badly and then never be the same fighter again. We don't need that for a dude that's looking like he could be like a great fighter in his career. We don't need that right now. Ronnie Shields is a smart man. Build him up. Let's get him a tougher opponent than this last fight, and let's make him look better against that tougher opponent than he did in this last fight. And then 100%. maybe two fights down the road, you could start thinking Benavidez. But Benavidez is thinking Canelo. Benavidez isn't thinking Morrell Jr., you know?
No, I agree 100%. He's not thinking it. He's you know, it's big fish, right? As Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence were going back and forth with each other. And the other thing is there are other names at 168 that he could take on, you know, and build up his skill set and focus a little bit more on being a little bit more defensively sound. You know, the Cuban school is known for a hit and not be hit footwork-based boxing style. And he kind of just goes forward, all steams ahead, and bullies his opponents before a KO. You know, you might not want to take on David Benavidez just yet. It's because you want to, you know, it's great to want to test yourself, but you also want to kind of ensure that it's a winnable fight at the same time. And I don't think it's quite a winnable fight, Kenny, just yet.
I co-sign that heavy. I don't have anything else to add to David Morrell and his development. I don't want to see him fight Benavidez. No. Oh, that's a tough challenge right now. Benavidez is even a tough challenge for Canelo. Let's be real. We just need to see Benavidez prove himself a little more, and then he can go against Canelo. But he ain't proven himself. You know, he's just nicely passing the eye test, and he got a big body with a lot of reach and a lot of punching power, and he can also take big punches. So, look, Benavidez needs to build himself up a little more, and both of them need to build themselves up even more so they can fight the top guy and eventually fight each other. It is what it is.
I absolutely agree with you, Kenny. So any last thoughts before we round it up?
Nah, man, we good to go. We've had a great number 50. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and watching. Go check out KO Kenny all on the table on all streaming platforms, and thank you all for your support.
Right, and if you're new, all right, and you haven't watched us before, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Kenny's talking about his EP, All on the Table. He's got the album art behind him. Kenny is a rapper, all right?
Yes,
He's not just a analyst of the sport with me, okay, here on MaestroA. He also does it on his own channel, all right? So you got to check out his channel. He's going to drop the link, all right? So definitely support. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. All right, hit that like button. It helps us a lot. Share it if you can. I always forget to plug my own channel. All right, so please make sure you do that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And before we get up out of here, Kenny, I'm just going to review everything again because we did come to some consensus. All right, so we're going to review really quick Maestro's top 3 after talking with Kenny. All right, and others in the chat. We got Devin Haney, number 1. We got Vasil Lomachenko, number 2. And we've got George Kambosos Jr., number 3. Top 3 lightweights. All right, and then we advance over to Maestro's top 5. All right, we got Alexander Usyk, Saul Canelo Alvarez, Naoya Inoue, Jermell Charlo, Devin Haney. And then we've got a bunch of guys here who could easily be on this list. I would personally just like to see Terrence Crawford take on Errol Spence. The winner of that fight shoots straight to the top of
top three.
Top three. No, I was trying to figure out the way to say up there on the list. Not necessarily number 1, but top 3 for sure. Absolutely.
I'm 100% with you on that as well. I love the adjustments. They all make sense. They're all great.
100%. So check out KO Kenny. Link is in the chat. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video. That is it for Mano a Mano. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, and we are out.
Shit, all right. I hear you, B. Shit was all right, you know what I'm saying? All right. Hey, nigga, Pete, though. If you SBA pay, you call me Young Repo, Old Debo. You can rapidly move your feet, so. But nigga, what's graphics to a cheat code? You know that Garrett's ain't for the hood. Turn your cheetah into Cheetos. Flaming, nigga think he banging. I make you take your chain out of places you should tuck your chain in. But Lou, you can get it back if you pay him. I make you Smith a will if you ever think about Jaden. Quit the parading, lighten up like Raiden. Act your age, stop acting like you Asian. Talking like a shaman, make this trip short like a ride around the Caymans. All that shit you saying, this nigga acting like he was balling out in Chrome Hearts. Came out with a bag smaller than some phone parts. Fuck out of here.